at the end of the day, we're in the middle of the attention economy. And that's what we're fighting for, is how do we get in front of people and actually cut through the noise? And the Impact Arc framework is all about pulling people and inviting people to be part of that conversation. So it's not just us speaking out, but it's really creating a dialogue at scale. So you really can create believers through your content and build a community around your work, and ultimately create whatever movement that you're trying to create is really done by kind of doing those things over and over again.
Over the rainbow.
Hey, Storymakers, and welcome to Tellwell, the podcast where we're inviting you into some of our favorite conversations with our Storymakers who are our clients and our friends. And for this very special episode, we're excited to welcome John McCoy of We Are For Good, who is going to be one of our keynotes at Well Told, the nonprofit social media conference, the nonprofit storytelling conference, which is going to be happening in just a couple of months here in Fargo. So John, welcome to the podcast.
Max, what an honor. I can't wait to hang out with you guys on the tundra and see like North Dakota in all its glory. How beautiful.
You know, you'll be coming at the right time. And we were pretty strategic when we placed it, because like by April, the likelihood of a major snowstorm goes down significantly.
Dang.
But not impossible.
Okay, good.
Not
Hold on
impossible.
hope.
The latest snowstorm that I remember is at like early May of like 2011.
Oh gosh.
And it was just like,
All the flowers are just killed on, direct snowfall. It's so sad.
The flowers are as hardy as the people. It just said, here I am. So anyway, John, for folks that don't know you, maybe don't know We Are For Good, could you just introduce like yourself, your organization, and like even brag a little bit, because you're like over 600 episodes in on your own podcast.
Thanks, Max. Hey, everybody. I'm John. Grew up in small town Oklahoma, and it definitely informed a lot of my worldview. And so much of that changed in the college years. And so I want to tell a little bit of that story because I was a designer at heart. Easel was like my first major gift growing up. I was a designer and artist. I wanted to, change the world, but I wanted to do it through art and design. And I was walking through my college art building, and there in the hallway was a flyer that said, "Design intern needed at the OSU Foundation." And I knew I didn't want to go like sell potato chips, although I love potato chips, but I wanted to like use my passion for design and marketing to advance good. And so I followed this flyer, like put on a clip-on necktie because I don't really know how to tie a tie. They're still really, really pretty rusty for the most part. Yeah. And I show up at this interview for this internship, and there in the chair is Becky Endicott, who's now my co-founder of We Are For Good. We found each other really early in our careers and became like fast friends. We're happily married to other people, but in that phase of life, we were at Oklahoma State University Foundation. They were raising $1 billion fundraising campaign. I'm like a 20-year-old kid that thinks it's normal to have like $100 million gifts coming in, $10 million gifts come in. And I was like, man, philanthropy is so exciting. Like all these generous people everywhere. We're getting to create, impact reports and websites and all this kind of stuff. And it's just not what reality was. This is not normal for most nonprofits out there, but I thought this was kind of the bar. So flash forward a few years later, I was kind of following a passion to get into, the next step of philanthropy work. And I went to a healthcare foundation alongside Becky. And no lie, the second week on the job, Max, we are getting publicly sued by Garth Brooks over naming rights of the hospital. So we go from like this multi-million-dollar, $100 million campaign to literally getting drugged through the national media cycle. And I was like, is this what this is about? Like, why did we come here? Like, who wants to give to this? How do we convince this community to get behind our organization? And it forced us to do something that completely changed my life, because we came together and we were like, if we're going to ask people in the community to care, to give, to invest, we have to believe from within first. And it's like we laid the groundwork of like, what's the inner work that we have to do in this hospital to restore people's trust, to like build back the stories that really matter and connect us to this. And how do we, create a campaign that's not about money, but it's really more about belief. And that laid the groundwork. We stayed for another 10 years, and this employee campaign did like 10x what it could do because of the power of storytelling and community building. And it planted this seed that I was like, this is what philanthropy is about. It's about grassroots movements of each of us doing what we can, coming together. Yeah, it's about the major gifts too sometimes, but it's also about like how it moves us and how it connects to our purpose and how our story. And so it laid the groundwork for like these are some values of how we've seen movements really unleashed. And we thought, what would happen if we took that to a podcast and just started having really open conversations about, and these are the things that really matter, playing the long game and building believers instead of donors. And, community is everything. These are all core values that were threaded into our work. We started the podcast in the middle of the pandemic in 2020. And now 600 episodes later, it's like, 600,000 downloads around the world. And we have a global community that now not only is like connected from like a value proposition of the things that we kind of pull us together, but it's its own movement in its own right, because we call it an impact uprising. Like, how do we each wake up and pour into the impact we want to see in the world? And we can only do that when we kind of lock arms together. So it's still very much a part of my story of like, how do we use whatever we have and bring it to the table to like advance good? And for me, that's still clicking around in Illustrator and Canva, making graphics, because I still really love doing that kind of thing. But it's like recognizing that we each have something really vital to bring to this world. And that's what really stirs me.
John, the purpose of this podcast is really to give folks a preview as to what's to come at Well Told, the nonprofit storytelling conference. And so as you're coming all the way up, I don't know where you're going to be traveling from. Where are you traveling from when you're coming in April?
I mean, okay, so a little bit of a story. My family and I sold our house in Oklahoma back in 22 years ago now. And we've been traveling the US to see all 50 states, 50 national parks in a vintage Airstream. So we've been on the road. I would love to tell you where I'm exactly going to be at the conference, but we're going to find the nearest airport and I'm going to be there. But so we're currently in South Carolina, but lots of crazy stories, happening along the way for sure. Meeting interesting people.
Yeah, I love that. Sorry, random. I also have a mission to visit all of the national parks. I'm curious, what is your collector's item? Are you like a pin? Are you a sticker? Are you a patch? Like, what is your collector item? Or puppets? They all have puppets for some reason.
So obsessed with this question. We all have the passports, we got to go get the like passport stamps. So we've got 4 kids. Did I say this already? We've got 2 sets of twins. So we're kind of an anomaly. We always tend to stop traffic wherever we go. But each of the kids has their own project at each of these places. So we're finding a state flower, we're finding an ice skating rink in every state, we're finding a sanctuary in every state, we're finding the state food. So we're collecting a bunch of things in a very tiny space. But yeah, for us, it's the passport at the national park and the memories, of course, in our hearts.
Absolutely. I love that. And I super appreciate that. I'm a patch person myself. I love the patches. I don't know why.
I love it.
What's
do you
funny
sew
is
them on, or do you iron them on, or how does that work?
No, I have too many commitment issues for that. I can't sew them onto anything because I love them, and I'm like, I know I'm not gonna have this backpack forever, but I want this. Like I want this
patch forever.
Also why I don't have tattoo. Right, I want this patch forever. So I just have like a little like Ziploc bag of patches. Don't do
I think you should take the risk. I really think you should take the risk this year. So am I.
Okay. You know what? I will take that challenge. And maybe by the time you're up here in April, we will have a backpack of patches. Or maybe I should get a jean vest.
What is this in Office Space all the years ago? I feel like it's swag, or what was the term?
Oh yeah. No. Yeah. Pieces of
flair. It's flair.
Yes.
Flair.
Yes. I love that tangent. That made me really happy. But to get people kind of excited about what you're going to be speaking about, even just like the energy that you bring, I think they can already hear the energy that you'll bring. But I'm curious, what are you hoping people take away from Well Told?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that storytelling is a superpower, and I think in today's day and age, obviously with like the rise of everything AI out there, like our authentic story like cuts through, it matters like so deeply. And so the day is going to be all about, how do we be a better storyteller? How do we do the work? But what I'm bringing to this stage is the impact arc framework. And this is like something that Becky, my co-founder, and I developed literally in our time in healthcare. And now we still run the same playbook today with We Are for Good and with clients that we work on. And it's this idea of like, how do we really get leverage out of the stories that we tell? How do we not just and we should take the time to get to know people, to hear their story, to ask the right questions, to do all the stuff that I think that a great storyteller is going to do. But how many times do we do all that work and then it literally goes sits in an annual report and is like collecting dust, or it's in a file in our Google Drive somewhere, and it's like it never gets the light of day. But the impact arc framework is this whole idea of like using the power of building movements. how do we use story to stage? How do we really like get people excited about what's coming? How do we use story to power movements and thread people's experiences in? And then how do we actually syndicate that content, which is what I get really excited about of like, it's not a one-time use. How do we use clips of it and quotes of it and photos of it and graphics of it to take one really great piece of content and put it in lots of places to increase engagement? And then lastly is how do you stoke? Like, how do you keep the fire going that you don't just put something out there once, but like, how do you actually engage to create meaningful engagement around it? Because at the end of the day, we're in the middle of the attention economy. And that's what we're fighting for is how do we get in front of people and actually cut through the noise? And the Impact Arc framework is all about pulling people and inviting people to be part of that conversation. So it's not just us speaking out, but it's really creating a dialogue at scale. So you really can create believers through your content and build a community around your work, and ultimately create whatever movement that you're trying to create is really done by kind of doing those things over and over again. So we're going to break it all down. We're going to have examples, and we've interviewed hundreds of people. So we're threading this through the context of really amazing stories of how this works out and what it looks like in real time, and just some pro tips of like, how do I actually do the thing? What kind of tech tool do I need? How do I make this easy on myself? So it's all going to be bundled up in the Impact Arc.
Incredible. I think two things that I'm really, really excited about as you mentioned that is one, we talk a lot about like inviting people into a story. And to me, this is like a very tactical way to be inviting not just like the default audience in, which could be the funders, but it's also like, how do we invite other folks in, whether it be advocates, whether it be employees, whether it be like I would imagine that there are lots of different audiences that can be invited into that story. The second thing that I'm super excited about, and I'd love you if you could give even just like a teensy example, like a little appetizer of it, is like we're really purposefully making Well Told not just what we might call like inspiration porn, right? It's not a TED talk. We don't have like 20-minute speakers and then you leave the day and you're like, I'm so inspired, and you get to your desk the next day and you're like, oh, what do I do now? Like, we're trying to make this really, really purposeful, which is why we've stacked the day with like incredible speakers like yourself that are going to both give kind of like the inspiration and the theory behind it, but then also give some like tactical recommendations. And so I'm curious, can you give us like a bit of an appetizer, and I'm putting you on the spot, for what that kind of like tactical approach might look like?
Yes. You're speaking our love language over here too. I'm like, enough of the talking heads, and like, let's actually leave and feel like we're making progress. I think the most powerful thing is I believe in the power of like a syndication lens is what I call it. So looking at your work that's already done, like I hope that you leave this session and think, what is already created, what is already written down that has not gotten the light of day, maybe in front of all the audiences that you're trying to steward, or maybe hasn't just gotten the mileage that you think it deserves. Because I think the creative work that we're putting in just deserves that. And that's why I talk about leverage a lot. So if you really put on the syndication lens, let's use any example. And I think, y'all call it Gala or Gala up in North Dakota? Y'all got
Gala.
A Gala.
Gala.
Okay, so we're Oklahomans over here. So we got the Gala. We sound very hickish. Got my headset on the back. This is like such a hack that I think is so powerful, because I was in the seat for literally 10 years running galas, and we're building scripts. We're making videos. We're doing all the invitation and the decor and working with the committee to pick their napkin color. And it's like at the end of the night, those people in the room probably had amazing experience, but your community probably missed it, you know? And our challenge with this of like a syndication lens is, what are those pieces you've already created? Well, we got 4 videos. What's the script look like? Well, we have this incredible storytelling that happens on stage. If we look at that with the syndication lens, I can leave the conference and go look at the assets I already have and say, this is already done. Like, this content's already done. It's already been vetted if you're in healthcare, which you know is a whole thing. But it's already been probably co-signed that people feel good about the way that the content turned out. So how are we actually taking it into bite-sized pieces and using it to advance our greatest goals? Because we have to get clear on our goal of like, what are we really wanting to try to do? We're not just creating noise for noise sake. We're like, how does this attach to my greatest goal? Because man, I've probably already written the words that could be pulled into the appeal. I probably have written a cadence of social media posts that all point to what we're really talking about, and it's literally already there. And the powerful thing is you've got AI tools today that could probably help you take that and cut it and slice it even faster than ever. But what you don't want to miss is that we're not just doing this to create a lot of noise. It's got to be tailored to what are you trying to advance? Well, what was that gala trying to advance? A campaign, an initiative, a fundraising goal? What is it? Let's get really clear on that. And then let's create the content pathways to lead to that in all the different places. So that's like one of the easiest hacks because you've got it. I don't know what it is. It may be a gala script or it may be a glossy magazine. I don't know. What have you got that you've already done that you feel proud of? Like, let's start there and use that.
What gets me so excited about that is we have from like our kind of like our story makers club, we refer to our clients as our story makers. So if you're like, what like we're the storytellers, they're the story makers, like a very symbiotic relationship, right? But what gets me so excited is we have some like A players, right? They produce the best galas, right? They sell out every time. I think one is probably north of 400,000 that they did like this year. And that's their biggest one ever. And like just absolutely killing it. But what gets me really excited is this is exactly what they need. Right? Because they take maybe the videos that we produce as kind of like their pillar piece of content, and they will like repurpose that a couple of times over. But there are some amazing moments in their galas or galas, if we're in the South.
Thank you. I feel seen.
That there's some just like amazing moments that we know the entire thing is captured. And so, you know, because we have like either there's live streams or they just like record the entire thing where like the beneficiaries of these dollars are on stage, like smiling and excited and like so grateful for that. And there are some really amazing moments that are captured that I know are never used again. So that gets me really excited because even these like A players, the folks that are setting the standard for what like a gala is supposed to be in this community, they're going to get a ton from that.
I love it because it also honors the time. Because those of us that have worked on a gala know that it takes months to get to that point. And the more leverage you're getting out of that and getting it outside of the walls, it's honoring the investment of your staff's time, your beneficiaries' time, everybody that's pulled into this effort. You get more mileage out of it. So it's only like a win-win. And I got to say one other thing. I think it allows you to flip really kind of like the percentages too, because in the old days, I would spend at least 80% of the time making the content and maybe 20% of the time repurposing it. And that's being very generous. But this way, it's like whatever you've used, think of that as your 20%. Now you've got 80% of the time a runway to think of creative ways to share it, repurpose it, plug it in places. Because people are not getting all that you're sharing and all that you've created. So it's like, how do we repurpose and get it in front of new people?
I'm curious, just like, and maybe this is a conversation that we should have live on stage, but I'm curious, when somebody attends one of those events, does that also then become like an amplification source? They're like, oh wait, I was there. I saw that moment. I now want to reshare it. I want to retweet it. I want to be forwarding that email on, sending that video off to somebody that maybe didn't get it.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the most under-talked tools is, I don't know if dark social is the right way to say this, but the power of the DM. Who is your most engaged people? Yes, you can tag them. Hey, we're repurposing the gala video. We're going to tag the 42 people in it. That's kind of like very low level way to get people engaged. But what if you DM'd and said, hey, thanks for being part of this night. We're trying to share this with the greater community. Would you help share this? What if you did that? I'm talking copy paste or get on your voice note. This is my ultimate hack. Get in voice notes with LinkedIn and just get in a flow. And you can send 20, 30-second video or clips in 15 minutes. And those people feel seen. They're going to be activated and they're going to respond. It's like the power of the share. That's what we call stoking. That's the whole section of like, how do we stoke content? Not just put it out there to die, but put it out there and use it as stewardship for those people, but also a chance for them to get active. It's like an invitation to get activated around it too. So it's like
and people
win-win.
Want that.
Yeah.
Right? People want to stay
oh my gosh,
active.
Max
like
thought
they've
enough
just given
of me
a
today to DM
money.
me and ask me that he thought of me. You know, it's like a little bit of that too.
Yeah. Well, now I see your name every day because I do want to like slide into your DMs every
Let's do
day
it.
because I'm like, John McCoy's coming to Fargo. No
Come on,
big deal.
let's do it.
I love it. Well, John, I'm curious. These are supposed to be like short episodes. I feel like they've gotten a ton, like, even if you don't come to the conference, which you absolutely should, they've gotten a ton from like this conversation. So I'm curious, can you give us just like a primer on We Are for Good, like the podcast, but also the community?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we do view ourselves as a community. I mean, what starts here ripples is what we say often. And so our community gathers quarterly at a gathering called Impact Up. It's a free virtual event. I think this is the most beautiful manifestation of how this has grown. But now the more than 50 cities around the world have gathered for Impact Ups where there's no cost. It's come together. If you believe in building the Impact Uprising, it's a free place to join community that are like-minded, that just want to like be connected. And so those events are happening quarterly. So the next one is on April 10th. You can find it, or you can host in your actual city. If this is something you want to bring to Fargo, we'd love to see it there.
Let's do it. Just
getting
sign us up.
Hey, all right. Forever. This is awesome. So our mantra is community is everything. So we're all about how can people get connected in IRL. But if you love the podcast, if you're a podcaster, like definitely check us out. We drop 2 episodes a week and we've talked everything nonprofit, leadership, marketing that you can think of. So DM me if you want some recommendations. I'm happy to set you up a little playlist because 600's overwhelming for even my mom to keep up at this point. So just tell me and we'll shoot you over some ideas of where to start.
My mom is also Tellwell's #1 podcast fan.
Like,
I have to show her
we
where
got
to
one
find it
download immediately. Yes.
I have to show her where to find it every single week, but she finds it and she loves it. So I appreciate
Yes.
that. So John McCoy, We Are for Good, going to be live on stage at Well Told, the nonprofit storytelling conference. So that is coming up April 24th. A special little ditty for podcast listeners because we are now after the time of
The early birds have already gotten the worm. So
the early birds have already gotten the worm, but for our podcast listeners, because you invested this 25 minutes, which you've already gotten like such a great ROI out of, but because you've invested this 25 minutes, if you use code podcast in the Eventbrite, you will actually bump all the way back down to early bird pricing, which
That's awesome.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
That's awesome.
So for in person, that's $200 off. For virtual, that's $170 off. And our virtual price is $27. And it is like, there's so much gold. So, I mean, if you just had 1 hour with John McCoy, that would be so worth it. But we have 6 incredible speakers and then we have me. So we have 6 incredible speakers and me, right? It's, it's going to be such a great day. Even the virtual option is going to be such a great community. We're just about to announce we're going to have a moderator in there who is just like a rock star in the Fargo Moorhead nonprofit community, a legend herself that we'll be announcing soon enough. But John, any final fears, hopes, or dreams before coming to Fargo?
Oh my gosh. Be kind to yourself out there. The world is a challenging place. Like, take that moment, deep breaths, and we got this, especially coming together with like-minded friends. Like, it's the best balm for this moment in time. So I can't wait to hang out with you, Max, and the whole crew there in Fargo. Appreciate the opportunity.
Ditto. Thanks, John. We'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning into this special Well Told edition of Tellwell the podcast. If you're ready to transform how you share your mission, join us on April 24th in person in Fargo or virtually for Well Told, the nonprofit storytelling conference where powerful missions meet masterful storytelling. If you're interested, make sure to use code podcast at welltoldconference.com to unlock early bird pricing. Whether you're a nonprofit leader, communicator, or mission-driven entrepreneur, this intimate hands-on experience will help your impact become impossible to ignore. Interested in sponsoring? Visit the website to see how you can support organizations working to grow and do the most good in our community. If you enjoyed this podcast, you'll love the in-person experience and the rest of the episodes in this special series where we're talking to all of the speakers and sponsors making this incredible experience a reality. When good work is well told, change becomes unstoppable, and we invite you to join us at Well Told, the nonprofit storytelling conference in Fargo, April 24th.